Hi everyone. I'm Anuj. I'm a community and marketing manager at Analytics Vidhya. As you all know, Analytics Vidhya is a leading platform in data science. Welcome to today's webinar. Today's webinar is on the importance of building the right problem statement in data science. We have two panelists today. I'll just briefly introduce them. Mr. Krishna Mohan, he's a senior manager at Thomson Reuters. He's an alumni of PGP Business Analytics and Business Intelligence program at Great Lakes, Bangalore. He has 25 plus years industry experience, and he has his MBA and MS degree from University of Connecticut, and he has worked with large organizations like Sprint, Motorola. And the other panelist, we have Gaurav Pathak. He's a general manager for admissions at Great Lakes Analytics program. He has 7+ years of experience in heading marketing and growth at various startups. He is a great strategist, entrepreneur, consultant, and a trainer. So I'll just hand over to Mr. Krishna. From here, Mr. Krishna?
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Right. So, sure.
All right. Good morning, everybody. So I know I cannot hear you, but at the same time, I would encourage all of you to use the Q&A session panel that is there so that you can ask me any questions at any time, and then let's make it more of an interactive session. First of all, thanks a lot for joining, and the interest that you've shown. Seems like we have about 40 participants online at this moment, which is an amazing interest that all of you have with regard to this particular subject, which happens to be about how to build the right problem statement when we are dealing with a data science project. This is probably one of the most overlooked and some of those which people consider to be something which they already know. However, the fact is that not many people do pay much attention. And at the same time, not many people spend a lot of time trying to figure out how and why is it that you have to build a good problem statement. Think about this. You go to a doctor with probably a chest pain, probably a somber note for a Sunday morning for you to think about. But at the same time, it'll probably hopefully drive the point that I'm trying to make. And the doctor does not jump into saying that, okay, your problem is that you have a heart attack or you got a gastric problem or whatever it might be. The doctor kind of knows that these are the possibilities, but the doctor will do some investigation up front. The problem is that you're the customer for the doctor, and the doctor understands that he has to first understand what is it that you are undergoing. The symptom that the doctor sees is that you have a chest pain. That's about it. However, the doctor goes about doing a bunch of investigations, which might be that they may have you go through an ECG, do some blood tests, all of those, and then only then the doctor comes down to a conclusion as to what is the problem that you're actually going through. So the doctor will ask you a few questions in the process as well. What is the comfort level that you're having? Does it hurt when you touch, when you sit up, stand, or even sleep? Which times of the day that do you experience this discomfort? So all of this is going on mainly because the doctor is trying to get some data about yourself. The doctor is also looking at your historical medical history. And in the process, the doctor is trying to arrive at what exactly the problem that he needs to solve for you. The pain is just a symptom. The problem could be somewhere underlying deep within, or maybe just something which may not even a problem, but you perceive it as a problem, right? So this is what is going on, and this is something which most of us are familiar with. And only once the doctor has got all the information he or she needs, do they say that, okay, for this particular problem, this is the what would be the treatment that they would like to administer. They may put you on medication. They may ask you to, if it's a more serious case, they may ask you to go through a surgery, or in some cases, they might come to a conclusion this is not really a problem with any part of your body. It happens to be something which you somehow come to believe that there is some problem within you. So they might say, just take some rest and you should be okay in another week. No matter what, it was very, very important for the doctor to first define the problem and only then jump into what the treatment needs to be. Very similar to what happens, what should be happening in any project, and including the data science projects as well. However, what really happens is that in real world, a lot of people are very keen to jump into the treatment part of it even before they understand what the problem is. And that is where we have to pay a lot of attention. And in the case of a doctor, if the doctor had done the same thing, the doctor would have prescribed you medication even before checking what's going on with you. The doctor might have put you into the surgery room even before checking what exactly is the problem with you. So you might have, the doctor might have ended up treating the wrong problem or something where there was not even a problem because they were so keen on jumping into the treatment side of it. We don't want that to happen, right? Within data analytics too, we do see that a lot of people have a tendency to jump straight into the treatment aspect of it, which is something we need to avoid. Rather, just like the doctor went through all the set of investigations, we have to engage people, the stakeholders, talk to them, understand what really is the problem that they're going through, use our ability or our knowledge about data science, and together we define what is known as a problem statement. And it is the problem statement which will essentially dictate what the future course of actions need to be. Okay, so this is going to be something which we will be spending the next few minutes, or actually about an hour, talking about. So this is what generally happens. In many cases, people are so keen that they want to implement a particular solution before finding out what the problem is. So let's try to avoid those and figure out what would be the best way for us to come up with or defining a problem statement. Okay. So having said that, before we move any further, let me give an addition to what Anu introduced about myself. Yes, I have been in the industry for about 25 years, worked for several different organizations, including what is today Convergys to Sprint, which both of them happen to be in the telecom domain. Later worked for Motorola, LexisNexis, or Reed Elsevier, as many of you might have known it. And in 2011, I returned from US back to India, wherefore to work for Thomson Reuters. And my educational qualifications wise, I did my engineering here in Bangalore, did my master's and also an MBA from the University of Cincinnati in Ohio. I'm a PMP certified and then also Six Sigma Black Belt certified individual as well. So what it has taught me is that all of these experience is that essentially one needs to have a good understanding of the problem before we jump into any other set of actions. So thank you for the interest that you've shown in learning this topic, and very important one. And let's move on with the next subjects. When you join as data science or a data analyst or whatever the title that might be in a real world organization, you might end up with a scenario, one of these scenarios. You may be approached with a statement that we have a problem and we know data analytics should have the answers. Maybe not true, but that's what they expect out of you. There might be others who say that we have lots of data, but we don't know what to do about it. Since you're the data expert, we will let you figure out what can be done with it. So you don't know which problem you're going to be tackling, but they expect you to figure out what the problem is. We have some data, but not sure what is missing. They say that, okay, yes, we have some data, but we don't know if it's complete. We don't know how it was gathered. We don't know who gathered it, but it's there. Since it's there, we want you to make use of it. So we have hired you as a data expert. We expect you to come up with some results. Or they might say that we want to use data analytics because everyone's been doing it, but we don't know where to start. We don't even have data. We want you to go there and find the data, fetch it. We don't where to get it from. That is something that you have to identify. You have to figure out how to get it. But you're the data expert. You know what to do. So go get it. Or you might find yourself saying that, okay, I'm supposed to be the data scientist. I have been doing some work, but I have no idea what I'm doing because someone told me that these are the things that I need to execute. These are the things I need to develop or write some code or models, develop some models, but I have no idea why I'm doing this. So you might end up experiencing or encountering in some of these situations in the real world. So you might look at it and then say, you might find yourself buried in a ton of data or ton of work, and someone is constantly been asking you, how are things going? Or it can get even complicated because very few people understand what data analytics is. They somehow believe this is a magical thing that has come along and we should be able to get all the answers that we are looking for. Like someone thought about the big data there. There are varying expectations. Some of them have used or decided to go with data analytics because everyone else is doing so. So we should as well. We don't know whether it's the right thing to do, but because everyone's doing it, we will do it as well. They also believe that data has all the answers. After all, numbers don't lie. And some of them are not even sure if they have a problem. They want you to come there as a data person and then say, okay, what is your problem? Only then they would say that, okay, yeah, if we want to go proceed in a certain direction or not. But because they think that data might have the answers for a lot of the things that they're looking for, now they're trying to figure out what the problem is. But one thing that you may have to be aware of is that data may or may not be able to answer everything and anything that is there. It depends a lot on the quality of data that is available and then also your expertise in that particular domain as well. So, meanwhile, as you have any questions, please feel free to post your questions using the Q&A. So I don't want to ignore you for too long, or I don't want you to feel that you've been ignored. Rather, post your questions, and as the questions come in, I'll try to answer them as well. Okay? Now, imagine yourself that you're the data expert in a bank. One fine day, you get a call from your CEO saying that we plan to use data analytics and we need you here for a meeting tomorrow. Okay? So you walk into the room the next day, you have no idea why you've been called exactly, and you see three people sitting across the table. One happens to be the CEO, one happens to be the the CFO of the company, and the third happens to be the sales head of the company. Now, here is how the conversation goes. The CEO says that the costs are too high and they want to find out if data analytics can help reduce the costs. Okay. Then the sales head pitches in. The sales head says, okay, we have the wrong products and have very little information about our customers. Can data analytics help us identify the right customers so that we can sell them the right products? So the salesperson is interested in identifying whom they want to sell the products and which products to sell them. Okay. And then the CEO pitches in and then says, we do not have the right strategy that factors in competition, market expectations, and geopolitical situation. The CEO says, okay, we need data analytics to help us out. Now, all three of them are very important people within the organization. However, for you, the question becomes, which problem are you going to solve? This is the most important part. You cannot be solving the CFO's problem at the same time, the sales head problem, and then also the CEO's problem. Each of them have a different set of requirements. Each of them has a different set of priorities, and each of them have a different metric as to what success means. So how would you handle a situation like that? And in fact, where do you even get started? Now, all of a sudden, your problem looks much larger than what it should be, right? So let me, before moving further to the answer part of it, let me look at the Q&A. So how important is domain expertise in data science? And how should I overcome the accuracy paradox in data science? How could I choose an actionable metric for my business? Okay, I don't see the name in there for the person who asked the question, except that it says Lenovo K8 Note. But yes, we will try to answer both of these questions as we move further along. So let's try to understand the situation that we are in and then move on to figuring out what do I need to actually address the problem, or in the first place, understand the problem, and then be able to say that, okay, what my solution might be or the approach that I need. But definitely we will address these questions as we move further along in the session today. The last question that came in is, which are good research organizations to do research internship for MTech dissertations? This is a career-oriented question. I think this one will come in after you are able to define your problem statement, right? Not sure I'm qualified to answer this question because I don't have too much experience in that arena as such. And finally, what kind of background is required for opting for a job as data science? So let's be a little cautious in this regard. My advice to all of you would be that do not approach everything with the job in mind, because then it narrows down your ability to learn and what you need to learn. This becomes very similar to many of you who did your undergraduate, which might be engineering or any other area, where you focused heavily on understanding or scoring good marks, but in the process, you probably compromised on the concepts that you needed to learn. So in today's world, most organizations would be interested, in your ability to solve a problem rather than which degree that you are holding. So how you apply the different concepts of data analytics in the real world problems, how would you be able to address those? And then eventually, how would you be able to interpret the output in the business context? And that will be what will count a whole lot more in today's world, rather than saying that, okay, I have so many degrees in this particular area. Okay, so I would request all of you to just suspend your job search objective at this point of time. Try to understand what defining a problem is, and that could in the process also help you in defining how you would like to address your career problem as well. So, and so just hold on to that. And there was one more question: how and when will we know the problem is understood completely? I think by the end of this session, you should have an answer for that, Ravitej. Okay. All right. Let's get back to lots of questions. Keep it coming. And then I'll try to answer as many as I can while making sure that we are able to keep up with the subject that needs to be covered today. And then also the fact that we have only a limited amount of time to work with. Okay. Sometimes client will not know the problem. They may have many symptoms, as you mentioned. How do we handle that efficiently? I think, thanks a lot. I don't know your name, but that is the objective of this session today. So at the end of this session, hopefully you would have an answer for that. If not, please come back with the question so that I'll be able to address it. All right, so let's go back to the presentation. Okay. Now we understood that we have a situation where you had the CFO, CEO, and the sales head have different objectives. But then you might be wondering, okay, if they have these problems, why is it that they think that data should be used, right? So that is something even you have to understand before you are able to say that, okay, I as a data person will be able to help you out here. So why use data? It may be because you're trying to prove a point, okay? For example, if you say that customers prefer instant discount over coupons, you're trying to prove a point. And you cannot prove that by just saying that is what you believe so, or just because you've been in so many stores and then you just got a sense that, okay, yes, people prefer instant discounts over coupons. But rather, if you come back with some data to saying that how many customers walked into the store, how many of them had coupons, and how many of them had probably another discount code, and which is what they like to use. So how much was the sales, if that is your parameter of determining what success is, how much of the sales was driven by instant discount and how much of the sales was driven by coupons, you would be able to make a point as to which one is better. But at this point, before you do all of that, it happens to be just your assumption, or in the language of statistics, it is called an hypothesis that customers prefer instant discount over coupons. It might also be that you might have an hypothesis that increasing the interest rate by 0.25% will not reduce the GDP growth. There's a lot of discussion about GDP in India, especially today, mainly because somehow people, there is the belief that you have to be over 6% or 6.5% for India to grow in the next few years so that enough number of jobs are generated. There is enough trade that is being done across several different countries, whatever it might be. But if you are the finance minister and if you decide that you want to increase or if you are the RBI, for example, if you want to increase the interest rate by 0.25%, how much would that impact the GDP? Okay, so if you have to prove one way or the other, you need data. Further, you may want to be trying to improve an experience for your customer. For that, just by saying that, okay, I'm going to change the wall color from pink to yellow or whatever it might be, you are not saying that you're improving the experience. Rather, you may want to say that there are certain actions that you would like to implement, which you believe will improve an experience. It could be like, for example, those who've been on long haul flights, you might be interested to know that the range of vegetarian food offered on an airline, for especially those flying in and out of India, vegetarian food is quite a priority for many passengers. So, but if you just say that, okay, you have only one vegetarian food on the menu, that may not be enough. But how many? What type of food? Because in a diverse country like India, people have different choices or preferences of what kind of food they would like to have on an airline. Since they also believe that they have paid a lot of money for this, yeah, they better get a good service, right? So to arrive at those decisions, you cannot just randomly pick any menu or any items and then put that together on as an offering for your passengers. You may want to get their reactions, understand how and when they like to have the food, and also what would be the right food for you to be serving on the aircraft. So this is all about experience. There's also questions like when you check into a hotel, some customers like to have a kitchenette in the rooms. They may want to make their own coffee. They may want to heat up their own food. Maybe something like a microwave is good enough for them. Or some of them even expect that you're going to have some cutlery or plates in the room so that they can eat in the room rather than go out to find a restaurant to have their lunch or dinner, right? So here you're trying to improve the experience. Now, understanding the customer becomes important. And for that, before you suggest what the solution is, this is similar to what the doctor did, understanding the patient before suggesting what the treatment is. So again, data becomes a crucial part of this. Discovering something new. You might use this data to understand why that customers who buy headlights are likely to buy wipers. This is what many of you are familiar with when you see recommendations made by Amazon, Flipkart, or anybody else, because they have tracked your buying patterns, and then they believe that customers who buy headlights are likely to buy wipers. But what is the driving factor behind that? It might be because when it rains, you have poor lighting and what happened? Everyone able to hear me okay? I heard a lot of echo just a minute ago. Everyone okay? Yeah, sorry. Okay. I'll come back to some of the other questions in a minute. So just be patient. Okay. So you might be that when it rains, the lighting gets poor, and then also because of the slow traffic, you have a lot of people putting on their headlights. So if the wiper blade is not doing a great job in cleaning up your windshield, then you may have to make sure that you're able to see clearly outside of the window, and at the same time, you're not hindered by the poor wiper blades. So customers might have those reasons why they decided to buy both the headlights and the wiper blades together. However, although all of these state that, okay, we do need data and there is a solution that has to be put together using data, one also needs to be aware that not all problems require a data solution. And you should be confident in arriving at this conclusion before you go back and make this statement. What would those situations be where data is not really a problem? For example, you had the situation where we had the CEO, CFO, and the salesperson all working together in the same company. That's great. But if a lot of the problems that they have is because of the political situation within the organization, which means that the three of them are not able to communicate well with each other or arrive at a common goal, then no matter what kind of a solution that you're able to come up with, it still might not work because your solution might demand that these three people work closely with each other. So it's a political situation. Your data may or may not be able to help much. So once you hear out the three people, one of the things that you also have to be aware of is, would you be able to help in the first place at all? If not, the best thing that you can do, and it takes a good amount of conviction on your part, is to state that, no, this is not a data problem. It is something which the three of you have to work together and resolve it. Okay? So be careful about that. On the other hand, if you just go ahead and accept that you will be able to help, and eventually your solution does not yield the results that they were expecting, you will be termed a failure. The failure was not because you had a great solution. The problem is more because it is something that cannot be implemented in the organization that you're interested in. Okay, so be careful, and at the same time, have the conviction, if you do arrive at this conclusion, that data will not be able to help. Okay, all right. Let's move to the Q&A part for a second, and then we'll jump back to the presentation. So do we go from data to problem or the other way around? So hopefully I'll try to answer that in the next few minutes as we get through this deck. Okay. Whether we set problem statements based on assumptions regarding the problem. Assumptions may be maybe part of defining your problem statements, but you do call it out. But what the other elements of the problem statement are going to be, that is something which we will learn in the next few minutes. Okay. All right. So now we get back to the presentation again. Okay. We all know that when we work within a large organization, no matter what we do, there are a lot more stakeholders than the ones that we directly interact with. Each one has a different opinion, different priorities, and then also they believe that just because they have been in the organization for the last 20 some years, they know everything that needs to be known. They may not be very receptive to getting information from you or the approach that you're going to take, right? So these are things that we have to be aware of when we are working with our stakeholders. Ultimately, what are we doing? We are trying to solve problem for our stakeholders using data. They might have had other ways of solving the problems, but you are there particularly because you are the person who knows how to work with data. So it's very important to know your stakeholders up front as to the extent possible. The stakeholders, of course, they have, like I said, they have different experience, knowledge, they have opinions, they have biases, and each one looks at it from a different lens. Just the way we looked at it, our CFO was looking at it from the finance lens, our CEO was looking at it from the strategy lens, and the sales head was looking at it from the sales lens. So each one looks at it from a different lens, and now you have to understand first is which lens are they looking from. Based on that, you can determine how much to understand them and how to start interacting with them. Okay. So having this diversity of views increases the complexity of the problem that you are trying to solve. In the first place, the problem that you are trying to define, because just before the salesperson completes his or her statement, the finance person would have already jumped in and saying that, okay, no, this is not how I would be able to process the invoices, or the taxes that are there that are associated with the kind of sales that you're talking about is not how it is being implemented. So what is happening now is that the diversity of views has increased the complexity for you to figure out what the problem needs to be or the problem that you need to address. But however, having the diversity of views is not bad all the time. It could be a good thing as well. what it does, it will help you identify some of the problems upfront rather than later in the cycle. Okay? That is one of the key things that needs to happen. Yes, you will be investing a lot of time and effort in the right upfront, trying to understand the problems, but at the same time, it is better that you get to understand some of the intricacies now rather a year later when you're ready to submit your reports, in which case you'll just find out that, oh, I didn't even know that this existed. So yes, diversity of views could be something that is a problem upfront. It will delay or it will require you to be patient before jumping into the solutions. However, it might give you some very important information which can more or less change the way that you approach the problem or how you define the problem in the first place. So be patient and appreciate that diversity could be a good thing or it could be something that will test your patience. Okay. So how would you address a situation like that? One of the first things would be that you had to find a good project sponsor, someone who's a decision maker, where if you go and ask them the question, okay, look, I have been waiting for this information for the last 3 weeks. I have not been able to get it. Now, should I go reach out to somebody else, or is it okay that if I proceed with what I have? If the person has able to make a decision for you, great, you can move ahead with it, or the person might point you to some other people within the organization to say that, okay, if you're not able to reach out this person, go, I'll refer you to another one who will be able to help you out. The second thing that the project sponsor may be able to help you is to say that, okay, yes, what you're thinking, does it align with the overall organization strategy? You might have a radically different way of approaching the problem, but if that does not align with the organizational strategy, then very likely it will not be accepted. So further, you can also, this person also has to have an understanding of what data analytics can or cannot do. This is something which we talked about earlier, that analytics may not have all the answers. It is one of the tools like everything else. So what can it do and what it cannot do is something that needs to be defined well enough. And that has to become part of your problem statement. Further, when we are trying to address a problem that cuts across several different groups, there is going to be politics in a workplace. This is unavoidable. This has got nothing to do with data. It has everything to do with we as people. So rather than trying to figure out or fight those battles across these different groups, you will request the project sponsor to insulate you from all of that and allow you to focus on the work that you have. And finally, the project sponsor should be someone who keeps you honest. There will be situations where you might be tempted to make some claims about what you are capable of doing, when you would be able to deliver it, what kind of results that you can deliver. So these may be something that you are trying to project yourself in the good light or make yourself sound a lot more important than what you really are, because you're trying to establish a place within the organization. So a project sponsor would make sure that you set the expectations right with the stakeholders, because ultimately that is what dictates what the success or the failure of a project is going to be. So make sure that you have a good person who is very supportive of you, with whom you can have an honest conversation, and with whom you can seek out for help at different phases of the project. Okay, so the project sponsor will be able to give you some really valuable input, which will help you define what the problem statement is. Okay, so now it's about time to start with a business problem. Okay. So we learned all this, the importance of all these different areas. But again, I'm trying to test your patience at the same time, because many of you will be like, okay, when are you going to start talking about the problem statement itself? Right? So this is an illustration that things are not going to be easy. You have to be patient and you have to get as much information as possible. Okay. So any other questions before I jump further? Okay, no new questions at this point. Okay. So when you talk about a business problem, this is something which you have to understand up front, is it might be in the nature of saying that our growth is below market growth rate. That is the business problem. And you're looking there at data to see, would you be able to find some answers? And is this statement of what the business problem is that good enough? Most likely no. You may have a lot more questions to say, go with it to say that, okay, what do you mean by growth? Is it, what is the market growth rate and what is your growth rate? Is there some comparison? So you will start with that before you start figuring out what the problem statement is. There might be another business problem, that is experiencing production problems impacting timely delivery. So here someone has said that we already know the cause. We're expecting production problems, and because the production problems that are there, we are not able to make some deliveries on time. Okay. Now you have to validate that using data if really production is the problem, or is the production, there might be some issues between the production line and the delivery line, or is it because that the transport of the products, that is that the problem? So here someone has already made a determination that the production problems are what is causing the delay in delivery. So you as a data person, if you find some other conclusion, it should be strong enough to contradict this. Or if you agree with it, it should be strong enough to support what has been already stated. So you have to validate some of the assumptions that people might have already made or about what is causing the problems. The third kind of a problem that, for example, that you might come across is high customer attrition. Yeah, that is just a business problem. But how much of an attrition are they experiencing? When did that change? Do you see a pattern in the attrition? Is there a seasonality? All of these things are what data will be able to help you. However, before you get to that, you need to state your problem statement correctly. Which customers are we looking at? Are we looking at all the customers that the company has? Or are we looking at only a segment of the customers where you're noticing high attrition? So you have to understand these smaller intricacies before you arrive at what a problem statement is all about. Okay. Now, to get to that point, you will have to ask questions. So what kind of questions would that be? You need to ask the who questions. Who are the stakeholders? Who are sponsoring the project? Who are going to be using the results that you come up with? Is it just the upper management? Is it also the middle level management as well? Or it could be even those on the floor who would be using the results that you generate. So you have to be aware of who the consumers of your work is going to be. Are they making any decisions based on who's going to be making the decisions based on the outcome? If you say that you will have to change the menu on the airline to 4 different choices, vegetarian choices, rather than the 2 that you have today, somebody has to make a decision based on your finding of increasing from 2 to 4 choices. So who are those making those decisions based on the outcome that you make? Who are all affected by the results? There could be multiple groups. For example, if you're looking at the same thing about the airline food, if the decision is made to go with your recommendation and change it from 2 to 4 choices of vegetarian food, there are so many different groups that are impacted. From the immediate customer interaction group will be the people on the aircraft serving those food. So they will have a lot more trays to work with now, and how to remember all of those things as to which food, which items are available on each of those different 4 choices, they are impacted. Further, the people who are packaging the food, you may want to have different color trays for different kinds of choices. They are impacted. The people who are preparing the food, they are impacted as well, because they now have to look at how the kitchen needs to figure out that they're going to have 4 different assembly lines instead of the 2 that they had earlier. The ingredients that needs to go into preparing the 4 choices. So that means procurement are impacted too. So as you can see, it is not just 1 or 2 groups who are impacted by the recommendations that you're making. It could be a lot more, and being aware of that is very important as far as answering some of the questions or arriving at your problem statement. So be aware of who are impacted, or the who questions will help you understand the context much better. Okay. Then we move to the what questions. What problem has to be solved? This is something we figured out when we were talking to the CFO, the CEO, and the salesperson. Whose problem am I trying to solve? Each one has a different one. Yes, everyone is interested in making sure that the company does well, but how they are approaching it is very different. So I need to be aware of which of those problems am I solving? What would be a perfect solution? Would I be able to come up with a solution where all the 3 are happy? Or would I be able to say, okay, let me start with probably the CFO side of it or the sales side of it before I arrive at the problems that I can solve for the CEO and the CFO? What would be the perfect solution? Now, you also have to ask this question, that what will happen if the problem is not solved? Very important, because if you leave things as it is, maybe it will be okay. In the case of the doctor might come to the conclusion that, okay, if it is just a case of flu, that if I allow you to take some rest for the next 1 week, you will be cured. I don't need to give you any medication. I don't need to put you on a diet or any of that. I just need to help you make sure that you take some rest for the next 6 or 8 days, and the flu will go away on its own. So that might be the right solution. You do not want to put medication in the body just because you want to make some money out of it, or to make sure that somehow make you feel important, right? So if the problem is not solved, what would happen? In other cases, you might continue to lose customers, you might continue to lose money, or you might continue to experience, or the problem might get even worse than what it already is, right? So again, with the doctor's case, if the doctor feels that if there is no intervention at this point, the person's problems will get even worse. So in that case, the doctor might suggest get admitted to the hospital immediately so that we can take care of your problem, or at least control the problem, right? But you might be reluctant to get admitted, in which case the doctor will have to say that if you don't get admitted, here are the possibilities. How serious can things get? Okay. It's a very similar situation when you're talking about data analytics as well. So you need to understand what is the problem that you're trying to solve. You need to ask the where questions. Where does the problem occur? So obviously, is it only in one location where you have your stores? Is it in only one line of products that you sell? Does it happen in only one area, whether it is the manufacturing side, the transport side, or the retail side? Where does this problem occur? Okay. Only then you will be able to establish your context much better. Is the function required to be, where is the function required to be performed? Again, like I said, is it at the point where you're interacting with the customer, right? Or is it before the sales or after the sales? If it's before the sales, is it at the point where you're taking order from the customer that the problem occurs? Or is it after you've finished the sales, and when people have problems with your product, is it where you're experiencing some of the problems that you're talking about? So you need to be aware of where the sale or where the problem is occurring. When does the problem occur? Right? Is it if I purchased a product from you, does the problem occur in the first week of my purchase? Or does it occur 3 years later? When does it occur? Or if it is because when the temperatures are very high, that my machines start to misbehave. If it's the case of a car, for example, if the outside temperature is too high, you may be noticing the car behavior to be something which is a problem, right? So when does it occur? And does the project need to be completed? When does the project need to be completed? Sorry. So again, what you're trying to understand here is that, okay, if the expectation is that you're going to come back with a solution in a week, okay, then you have to approach it in a certain manner. If the expectation is that you will be able, that you can come back with your recommendations in 3 months, then the approach that you're going to take will be quite different. So it's very important for you to understand when do the stakeholders expect you to complete the project. And the last set of questions is that the why questions. Why does the problem occur, or the function that needs to be performed? So now you are trying to understand why is this problem occurring. Some of it may be things that you can observe right up front, and you can have your hypothesis as to why this problem might be occurring. In some cases, some of the stakeholders might be able to provide you some information that will help you arrive at some findings or information which will be helpful to you in defining the problem statement. Finally, you also have to include why this problem needs to be solved. What does it require anybody's attention? And is it a problem that is worth solving in the first place? Right? So only after you get a good understanding of all these questions, you would have got a good context or a framework which will help you define what the problem statement is. Okay? So any questions so far? I haven't seen any questions for a while now, so please feel free to post your questions, and then I'll periodically keep checking on it. Okay? All right. So you asked all these questions, but I just want to give you a small example of what kind of responses can you expect when you ask these questions. One of our questions was, why does the problem occur? So the possible answers that you might get is that, is it because that you have a wrong set of products that you're not able to sell, or you're not able to get the customers interested enough? Or is it because that you have insufficient customer service? That is probably what is causing some of the problems in terms of customer satisfaction. Or it could be, some of the answers you might receive is that, okay, low customer diversification. That means you're only targeting one segment of the customer base. And what it means is that if you're not able to appeal to that customer base, you're not able to increase your sales. And also you are looking at some of the problems that you might encounter is that you do not have an attractive brand. You might have a great product, but it's just that your product name does not have enough of a recognition, nor does it have enough of a weight that can attract people to buy your product. Okay, there's one more question.
That section on the right hand side.
Okay. So again, for the question why this problem should be solved, the answers might be that if not solved, the bank will lose more clients. If we lose more clients, we will have reduced revenues and profit. So that becomes your justification as to why this problem has to be solved. Okay. So at the same time, you also have to have some metrics. I think some of the questions that were related to this is, what would be the metrics that you're going to be using to determine the seriousness of the problem, and then also what the success of the project would look like. So it might be in terms of the return on investment, the net asset values, the internal rate of return, capital cost, payback period. So several different parameters or metrics that needs to be also identified even before you finalize on the problem statement. Okay. So we're almost there. We are almost there at a point where, let's say we have captured all of this information, which would have taken us weeks, and we've been asked repeatedly as to when we'll be coming up with a solution, right? But we had to have this information beforehand so that we can figure out what our problem statement is all about. At this point, we're almost there. And before I disclose that, let me see what is the next question that came in. Can lean methodologies be applied in analytics as in build, measure, and learn? Yes, and you will find the answers in the next few slides. Okay. Now, here is a problem statement, which I already told you it's a poor problem statement. And it reads, having too few forklifts is making inventory levels too high. So can any one of you tell me why this is called a poor problem statement? Why do you think that this is not a great problem statement? What is there and what's not there in it? Can you go ahead and type your answers, please? Nobody, everyone thinks it's a great problem statement?
There's an option, and there will be a mic icon, and below there will be video.
Yes, Sarala said, we don't know forklifts are the reason. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Anonymous said it does not match with the outcome. Okay. But we don't even know what the outcome is, right? Others? Relationship between forklifts and inventory. So what about relationship between forklift and inventory? Are you saying that there is a relationship or there isn't a relationship? So again, you have to be very clear about what the problem is so that if I'm the one solving it, I need to know whether it's helping you or hurting you. Okay, forklifts and inventory are too less. So what is too less? Do we know? No quantification of the problem. That's what Sanjay said. Good. We are getting there. Okay, that's a good answer. Okay, I'll wait for one last response before we jump back in. Anybody who wants to take the last shot at it? Nobody? Okay, let's get back. Now, let me show you. Okay, there was, seems like one more response came in. Okay, that's about it. All right. Now let's look at what a good problem statement looks like. Inventory levels at West Metro Inventory Storage Process in Scottsdale are consuming space. They are taking up asset management time and creating cash flow issues. If you notice, until this point, we have not talked about any numbers. But what we have talked about is where is the problem occurring? It is occurring at the West Metro Inventory Storage Process Center in Scottsdale. What is happening there? It is saying that the inventory levels are consuming space. They are taking up asset management time, and they are creating cash flow issues. So we have the when and what aspects within the problem statement. Further, when we go, it states that the inventory levels are averaging 31.2 days with a high of 45 days. So how bad is the problem? I get to know that looking at the average number of inventory days and what is the high that one has, what we have experienced till today. These levels have exceeded the target of 25 days 95% of the time since January 2012. So when is the problem occurring? It is occurring about 95% of the times, right? Where our target of 25 days of inventory level seems to be exceeding 95% of the time. So it is quite frequent. And since when is it happening? It is happening since January 2012. $250,000 could be saved per year if inventories were at the target level. So what you're addressing here is that what would happen if we do not address the problem? If we do address the problem, we can potentially save $250,000. If we do not address the problem, then we are likely to lose $250,000 every year because of the inventory levels are not managed correctly. Okay. So what's going on here? You had, when you have the different stakeholders that are involved in this particular problem statement. When you say that the inventory levels are averaging at 31.2 days, the person who's managing the warehouse will say that, okay, I think we need to solve this problem. Let's take care of it. If you start, so you're appealing to his sentiments. You're also looking at the asset manager's sentiments. You're trying to get their support. And then also you are gaining the support of the CFO, whom you're telling them that you will be able to save $250,000 every year, which can also appeal to the other people within the organization, including the CEO, to say that, okay, we need your help and I will be able to help you by solving this problem. And I was able to get to this level of problem statement after having talked to all of you, understood your problems, understood your sentiments, and this is what it looks like. Okay, not an easy task. This can take weeks together to get to this level of information. But once you have this, whatever solution that you can come up with using analytics, it will be a robust one. It will be, more importantly, very relevant. Okay. So, were any other latest questions? No. Okay. Will we validate this 95%? Yes, that's a good question. So this is something that you were able to obtain from the warehouse manager, saying that on 95% of the occasions, you exceeded those 25 days. So if you are looking at a window of 1 year, in the last 1 year of data, you might look to see how many times that it exceeded 25 days. And then you would be able to say that, okay, yes, I came up with this 95%. But yes, when you're talking to the warehouse manager and who gave you this information, you will have to validate that before you put it in the problem statement. You may want to say that, how did they come up with that 95%? So that will become part of your questioning process. And then if they say that, okay, we did it only during weekdays, we included weekends, we did it, was it during holidays? Was there any, or was it like just the last 3-month window rather than a 1-year window? So you have to look at all of that before you settle down or agree to that 95% number. Okay. So how to write better problem statements? Sometimes it's difficult to put quantity around questions. How Six Sigma understanding helped you get into analytics? Okay, I'll come back to Sanjay's question later, but yes, that is why putting a problem statement is not an easy task. Like I said, you will be under a lot of pressure to start showing results. Because people would say that, okay, it's been 3 weeks, you haven't shown me anything. But in those 3 weeks, you're still trying to probably get to this level of understanding so that you know which problem to solve, right? So in some cases, yes, quantity may not be available. So in which case you may have to say that if you're making any assumptions, you will have to include those assumptions as part of your problem statement as well. You can add a second paragraph to this problem statement saying that the assumptions that you made in the process of arriving at this problem statement are A, B, and C. Okay. Or you might say that, okay, at this point of time, based on the information available, which is the best that you can, that you have, this is what you are proceeding with. But expectations is that in the next 2 to 4 weeks, you are expecting some new information to become available, at which point you will be evaluating your findings. Okay. So if you are able to put that as a supplement to the overall problem statement, that is helpful. But at the same time, a problem statement cannot be running into pages and pages. It has to be as brief as possible, and it has to be concise and as complete as possible. Okay. Yeah, how to practice on framing problem statements. This is a skill which is beyond any science. Yes, there is a lot of people skills in here. It is not just about mathematical skills. So how you engage the different stakeholders, what kind of questions you ask from them. So you also need an understanding of what data can do and cannot do. So it is not an easy task. In many situations, yes, you might be given a problem statement and then said, okay, here is what I want you to do. But then you may be solving the problem, but at the same time, you don't know what it really means. So yes, this is a skill that you may not get too many opportunities to get upfront. And then it also requires you to have proved your potential within the organization before someone puts you in front of all these stakeholders. So yes, but at the same time, if you get the problem statement wrong, no matter the best solution that you come up with will still be wrong, right? And you'll still get the stakeholder upset. I think we can start with vague statement, and as we get data, we can quantify the problem, reframing the problem. Maybe your vague statement, you can probably reword it as, we can start it at a high level, at a 30,000 foot level, and then you start getting down into the details. So probably that will be a better way of wording your statement, Sanjay. So yes, in many cases, you will start at a very high level of the problem, like saying that, okay, we have a customer attrition problem. That's a very high level problem. It's not entirely vague, but a high level problem. And then you will start digging into finding out what are the different areas where some problems, where you need to investigate. Okay. All right. We'll get back to the last part of the presentation. We're almost there. Okay. So as far as problem statements are concerned, here are the takeaways. You have to write the problem statement with the audience in mind. Do not use some really complex language which makes it difficult for your audience, which might be the CEO, the CFO, your senior managers, whoever it might be, so that they can understand the problem statement in the spirit that it is supposed to be understood. So write the problem statement, keeping them in mind, and also maintaining the level of information or the detail that you would need to include in the problem statement. Okay. Okay. Because you have to keep in mind, you have to convince both the management and the resources involved in about the problem statement that you have written. You need to enroll them in helping you solve the problem. You don't want them to be against you, right? And also, you don't want to be spending too much of your time trying to explain over and over again what is it that you're trying to accomplish. So it is not just about you understanding the problem. It is also about how you word the problem statement. That is very, very important as well. Okay. So the problem statement should include a brief description of the problem. It has to have the metrics used to describe the problem. Where is the problem occurring? The process, the location. Since when is the problem occurring, and the size and magnitude of the problem. These are things that definitely has to be part of the problem statement. So when we go back to the previous one, which we talked about the warehouse, it had all these elements in it. Now, what are the things you need to avoid? You need to avoid speculating the cause. Don't jump into a conclusion. This is happening because these people came in late. Not necessarily. Don't get into the cause much before, when you're still trying to understand the problem. Do not apply your personal beliefs or preferences. This happens a lot of time. Oh, I've been in this business for 20 years. I know exactly what happens. I always like to use this rather than the other. So you don't have to do that. And also, don't be too general. Customer attrition, yes, it's a too general a problem, but if you can get deeper into it, it will be a lot more helpful. And also suggesting solutions up front. You do not have to do it because you are in the process of still understanding the problem. Only after you understand the problem, do your analysis, yes, then only then you talk about solutions. Until then, you don't. Okay? Okay. On the home stretch, review. Once you got your problem statement ready, you write a draft problem statement, share it with your sponsor. It will go through multiple iterations. That's okay. Once you're happy there, share it with rest of your stakeholders. Again, iterate. It will probably go through a set of revisions, which is just fine. Once you got that, now you say, get consensus from all the stakeholders. Say that, okay, everyone's happy with what they're saying, and then we're ready to go ahead and start solving or analyzing and solving the problem. Also set expectations with all the stakeholders. Do not promise them that I'll get it back to you in a week, whereas it will probably take you a month to get it done. Do not tell them that, okay, you'll have all the answers when you don't even know what answers are required, right? So set the right expectations with the stakeholders. Do not be very, very anxious or eager to please them. That is not your goal. Your goal is to come up with the right solution. Also appreciate everyone's support, because you're not alone in this exercise. You have to make sure that every time someone contributes to your effort, appreciate their contribution. Publish a communication plan. If your project runs for 6 months, tell them, okay, every month that you will be sending them the updates, or when they can expect any communication from you at different phases of the project, whatever it might be, and who would be getting those communications. Publish the communication plan. This is not necessarily a data analytics project alone, but any project you execute, these things have to be in place. So finally, congratulations. After all this effort, you have now a problem that you can solve. Okay, probably you will hear a big sigh of relief and then say, okay, thank you. And then you will be able to start working on a problem that you were so eager to in the first place. But it took a lot of effort, which is great, mainly because you made the connection with so many different stakeholders. You understood the problem at a much deeper level. Your solutions that you might come up with will be more relevant. And of course, ultimately, it will dictate how successful your project is going to be. It will avoid a lot of rework and frustration in the process as well. Okay, I think a few more questions. We'll address that, and then I'll come down to the last part on closing out the presentation. Okay, our customers want to improve service to their customers. They are collecting data from their customers. Yes, they want us to suggest data analytics problem statement just by using data collected. Okay. Yes, this is where, Vrinda, as you said, you as a data person, you will run into these problems. They are expecting that you as a data person, you already have a solution, but you have already seen similar problems. So you will be able to help them solve problems very quickly. And also, in many cases, they do not know what kind of questions to come back to you with to know whether your solution is correct or not. They blindly go ahead, implement what you suggested, and in many cases, it might be the wrong solution before a problem that you didn't quite understand. So yes, there has to be some level of honesty that you have to display right up front, saying that, okay, you will not be able to give them the answers right up front, because unless you understand, it may end up being that you can make things worse than what it already is. Okay. So how can we scope the problem? If we talk about attrition problem, is it an industry-wide problem? Is it in IT and BPO world? Should we boil the ocean? Yes. Good question. Yes. So when you write the problem statement, that part of the thing that you are looking at, for example, what we did there in the warehouse problem was we were talking about only one warehouse. It might be a similar problem in multiple warehouses. So, or in several different types of business or products. So you have to be aware of that. And if it is an industry-wide problem, then the approach that you're going to take might be quite different. And in the problem statement, you might want to include that as to saying that the attrition level that your company is experiencing, how does it compare with the industry-wide attrition numbers? So if you're at a high level, your target may be that you want to bring the attrition below the average industry attrition level. That is a high level problem. At the next level, you will put some numbers to it saying that industry-wide attrition number is this, and we are at so much higher than the industry attrition number. Our target attrition is going to be industry attrition minus X percentage. So once you're able to do that, then you will be able to say that when you do your analysis, which parts of the business are we experiencing higher attrition? Is it certain skills? Is it certain levels? Is it at a mid-level? Is it at a lower level? Is it a technology level? Where is it that you're experiencing the attrition? And how would you be able to bring it ultimately below the industry-wide number? So yes, in this process, what you're doing is that you're defining the scope of the problem. Okay. I want to start consulting services in SME in my area. How can I go about it? This is a business development problem. I'm not sure if I'm going to have the time to get to it, but let's see. If time permitting, I'll come back. Would you mind suggesting some good reads regarding problem formulation? I'll be sharing some of the links through Anuj, and he will be able to pass them over to you. Okay. So much efforts to put a problem statement, solution would come easy. Yes. Einstein famously said, if I had 100 hours to solve a problem, I would spend 95 hours understanding it and 5 hours solving it. If he said it, I think there is some level of truth to it. So, but that's correct, because there is a lot of effort to understand the problem, and now you got this problem understood, you can more or less, as someone who has the knowledge of data, you already have a very good idea of what the solution needs to be. Okay. Give an example for iteration of problem statements. So yes, after all the conversations that you had, you go about drafting your problem statement, and then you go back to your stakeholders. So that is the first time that they're seeing what the problem statement really is like. In that process, you have to explain to them what the problem statement is, and sometimes they may or may not now agree to the numbers that you have, or how you have worded it. So it will go through some fine tuning so that there is no confusion later on, that when you finish the project and then you just go back to them, they will say, okay, yes, I don't know what, this is not what I meant. So earlier there was a question of, would we be able to use lean methodologies? Yes, this is exactly where you use it, to do the iteration, so that you kind of understand and make sure that everyone is on the same page up front before you spend all the time and effort in coming up with the analysis and the problem. Okay. How important is the data collection strategy before even designing or addressing a problem, business pain point? That would be the next step, Abhinav. Once you got the problem statement in place, the next thing that you will be looking to see is that what data is already available, what is the quality of that data, is it complete, incomplete, what is, if I have to get some additional data, where do I go? If I have to go there, they may or may not have the data. That means you may have to ask them certain questions so that they will be able to provide you what you are looking for. So yes, that will be the next step in your solution formulation process. Okay. Better to confirm with all stakeholders with the problem statement instead of making assumptions. Perfect. Yes. Assumptions are dangerous at many places, but at the same time, it may be necessary so that you can continue with your work. You cannot wait forever to confirm each and every piece of information. But having said that, if you can run it through some of those who have better knowledge, or the domain knowledge, as someone else had asked in the earlier question, where domain knowledge becomes important. Yes, these are some of those areas in validating your assumptions. So yeah, that's where it becomes very important to not only build the relationship with your stakeholders, but also to maintain them throughout the project and even post the completion of your project. Whether to include key performance indicator in the problem statement. Yeah, if it is available, and if you think that, okay, what is the current KPIs? What is the expected KPIs? If you think that that is available and it fits well within or strengthens your problem statement, feel free to include it in there. In many cases, different stakeholders may be using different KPIs, which makes it difficult for you to come up with a common formulation for that. You might end up having your own KPI finally. So, which may or may not help the whole problem statement, but at least you'll have one metric to go with. Many times as data scientists, we encounter stakeholders who themselves are not sure about what the specific problem statement, how to deal with it or solve such situations. Exactly, Soumya. That is one of the reasons why you, as the data person, have to go through all this effort trying to help them out so that they can understand the problem, and then you eventually get to a point where both you and the multiple stakeholders are able to agree to this one or two paragraphs of uh, statement, which takes a lot of effort, right? And in the process, you're also helping them understand about the problem itself, and then also what the expectations and what is it that you can do or cannot do for them. Okay, so how Six Sigma understanding helped you to get into analytics? So again, what happens is that there are multiple places where Six Sigma comes in. One is, of course, when you are talking to the customers, you are trying to see uh, how your data gathering process needs to be. The second part of it is once you get into the analytics side of itself, like if you are applying some of the Six Sigma when you're drawing your normal curve and then trying to say, okay, which one fits in, which one does not fit in, where do you see some abnormal behavior, which are the ones that you need to go about iterating. So all of those, you continue to apply some of the Six Sigma uh, expertise or the knowledge that you already have. Um, yes, you, but in many cases, I try to avoid using too much of the Six Sigma language when I'm dealing with my customers, mainly because some of them may or may not be using Six Sigma, in which case it might be that I can complicate the case a whole lot more than helping it. So from my understanding, I use some of those concepts, but when I'm interacting with the customer, depending on what their comfort level is with Six Sigma, I may or may not use some of the terms of Six Sigma in there. Okay, can you please share Slack channel details? Is that something maybe Anuj may be able to help out? Many times people say that they want data-driven solutions, and when I ask that what is the question that they are looking for solutions, they say they are not sure. What should be the starting point in such a situation? Very good question, and that is true. Because when it can be like a very simple thing, like for example, people are complaining that the traffic is getting too heavy and they are not able to reach office on time. Okay, that is a solution. That's a problem at a very high level. So if you just look to say that, okay, which are the routes that they take every day, where at what time of the day did they leave the house and what time did they reach the office, where did they use a two-wheeler or a four-wheeler or a public transport. So now what you're doing is that you're collecting data as it goes on. So you ask them some simple questions to say that, okay, can you do this exercise for a week and get back to me, or maybe for a month? So you are asking them to get into this data mindset in a gradual manner rather than demanding to say that, okay, or straight away dismissing that your problem is something that everyone has or you just have to live with it, right? So similarly with your customers, you say that, okay, can you help me just put these pieces of information in an Excel spreadsheet? I don't need any other database, just Excel, just enter these fields and fill it up on a daily basis. So after a month, you got a good enough information as a starting point, and then you ask them for additional information or ask them to continue working a little more. Okay. All right. So I know a lot of questions are coming in, but I need to allow Gaurav also some time on this 2 hours that we have. But great to see a lot of these questions coming in, and very, very interesting. I'll try to answer as many questions as possible, but if you have anything more, please route it through Anuj, and he will reach out to me, and then I will be able to hopefully help you much further. Thank you for listening to me patiently, and I hope this was a helpful session.
Thank you, Mr.
Anuj,
Krishna.
Yep.
I'll take over now. So thank you for your expertise of the topic. I hope everyone has a great idea of how important problem statement is, especially in the field of data science. Now I'll hand over to Mr. Gaurav so to share his expertise of the topic. And just to tell you, for asking questions or answering them, use Q&A section instead of the chat section. And in the chat section, you can just describe it if there is some technical problem. So Gaurav, can you hear me? Uh,
Yeah,
Gaurav?
Anuj. Hi.
Yeah. So from now, Gaurav will take over. I'll leave it to you, Gaurav.
All right. Thanks, Anuj. Thanks for the introduction. And thank you so much, Mr. Krishnamohan. It was an excellent session. You talked about one of the very important exercises in data science. I'm sure the attendees will take away a lot of positives from this session. So thank you so much for giving your valuable time to us to speak to us. All right. So coming to my part of presentation, so we all are interested in data science, right? We are at different levels. Some of us are experienced in that, and some of us are looking to learn data analytics, right? So this session, I would like to talk about what is the best way to learn analytics online, because most of us are working professionals and we always face this dilemma uh, that how to go about learning these courses. I mean, these are some of the emerging fields like data analytics, business analytics, machine learning, etc. Right? But we don't know. This is one of the most common dilemma which all of us face when we want to upskill ourselves in some of these fields, right? A little bit about me. My name is Gaurav Pathak. I am working as General Manager Admissions for Analytics Programs at Great Lakes. Prior to this, I founded a company called 6MAD, which was a startup dedicated to promoting fitness through events, right? Before that, I have worked in another education company. So I have in all around 7 years of experience in education, understanding problems which learners face, trying to solve them by coming up with innovative solutions in the learning domain, right? And this presentation, everything I have to share today is my experience of having interacted with thousands of professionals who want to upskill themselves and transition their career to analytics. Whatever I've poured out in these slides is a concise representation of questions that I've seen, the problems that people face when deciding how to go about learning the analytics, right? Uh, a brief introduction of Great Learning. So Great Learning is India's leading edtech company. We are one of the top 3 edtech companies in India right now. And our programs are designed to empower working professionals, develop relevant competencies, and accelerate their career progression. So if you actually take a look at our programs, analytics is the common theme, is the common hue and flavor in all our programs. So our mission is basically to make every skilled professional data proficient, right? And we offer multiple top-ranked programs in big data, data science, machine learning, all the emerging fields. And most of our programs have been ranked as the best program by several independent sources. All right, starting with uh, jobs. I mean, let's talk about the most important issue at hand. How do you future-proof your career? We have seen in the past few years that there's multiple job losses in most of the companies. But what is more concerning to me is the uncertainty in IT services industry. I mean, it's not new. We all have been reading for the past 7-8 years that XYZ company has laid off hundreds and thousands of employees. But now it has reached a crescendo such that the impact can be seen all around us, right? And we are kind of seeing, and this situation has come because of a lot of reasons. Primary reasons of those are automation, machine learning, and data science, right? If I talk about IT industry, it's actually seeing a transition. When the IT companies were on their high, say 8-9 years back, basically all through the 90s and 2000, the first decade of 2000, first 10 years of 2000, we were seeing that the IT companies, their strategy was revolving around hiring as many full-time employees as they could, right? The skills required for the job were very few and very specific, right? Very focused. But now the transition has happened, and the professionals in demand are the ones that have very specific skills that are required in these businesses, right? And even if you look at the companies that are laying off massively, on the other hand, they are hiring in areas such as analytics, right? So now we are faced with two options. Either we can extinct, we can become relics of the past, or we can upskill and become specialist or expert in one of these domains, right? So what we are saying is that you can embrace the future or extinct, right? Embrace the future by learning analytics, big data, machine learning, all these skills. Below in the slide, you can see some numbers which stress upon the fact that analytics is the future. If you look at some of these reports which quote that, like one from McKinsey quotes that India will need around 2 lakh analytics professionals by end of 2018. Similarly, NASSCOM says that India will see 5 lakh analytics and big data jobs by end of 2018, right? And the Economic Times report, which I read recently, it said that big data analytics industry in India would be worth $16 billion by 2025. And we're not seeing this kind of growth in most other industries right now. Right. Now, because of all the reasons I discussed in the last slide, professions are looking to upskill themselves in some of these emerging fields like data analytics, big data, and machine learning, right? The most common dilemma everyone faces is how to go about learning these courses, because there's so many options to learn analytics online today, be it online or offline, right? Let me discuss in brief about the options which are available. So the first option is the full-time programs. Now, these are more suited for younger professionals who can afford to quit their jobs or who have not joined a job, and they can then pursue a full-time program. Now, while there are many advantages to a full-time program, but there's a huge opportunity cost of quitting the job, right? So most of us who are working professionals, we cannot afford to quit a job for a year or two and take a full-time program, right? Now, that brings us to the next option, which is online programs. And we see them all around us right now, right? The concerning fact for me is that we all hear or read these claims about learning analytics or data science in 40 or 50 hours, right? First of all, it's not possible to learn anything in 40, 50 hours, anything which is as complex as data analytics or data science, right? And even if you learn something with such a model, the learning will be superficial. And anytime you go into interviews, you will see how shallow your learning is. And that's why it's very important to build a strong foundation while learning analytics, right? The second concerning factor for me is completion rates. So if you look at all the online programs which are available right now, the average completion rate, with completion rate, I mean the number of people who complete the online course once they start it, right? The completion rate is around 10 to 15% in the industry. Even if you look at most of the international online training companies, including Coursera and Udacity, they report completion rates, the maximum, the best possible completion rates they have is something around 20 to 25%. What that means is that at best, 1 in 4 candidates who start learning online complete their course, and remaining either drop off or are left behind, right? So odds are stacked against you if you take up an online course, right? And the other issue I have with online programs is the academic rigor. Now, what does your program mean to the recruiter? How do you know whether you did the rigor and not that someone else completed the program for you, right? You can pay and get a certificate. You can finish an online program and get a certificate, but is that the kind of program that is going to help you, right? These are some of the questions you have to ask, right? Now, the third option in learning analytics is the option of blended learning. Blended learning is basically a combination of online and offline learning, online and classroom program, right? Now, some of the top universities, top institutes like even Great Lakes, we provide blended learning programs. So these programs are more longer and more exhaustive. So we were talking about superficial learning. So to avoid that, you have to spend time, you have to practice, you have to have hands-on learning, you have to have industry exposure. So all that is part of the blended learning, because these are like year-long programs which have weekend classroom programs plus online side to it, right? Now these programs definitely need more commitment, much more commitment than online programs. But because the model is very different, the model is blended, the completion rates are really high, and the learning is more exhaustive, right? These programs, of course, have higher fees as compared to online, which is pretty obvious given the kind of effort and resources which are required to provide or deliver these programs, right? Okay, now how do you learn? So the first thing you should do before you look to learn analytics, before you start learning, and something which people often miss, which is the very first step, is to understand what you want to learn and what is your expectation from it, right? And also you should ask yourself what will happen to your career after you learn analytics, or after you learn analytics through this course, right? So before you start learning, you should decide what you want to do with this education, right? If you're learning for wrong reasons, then it's not gonna help. One of the common thing which we see amongst learners is the herd effect. Now, mostly that happens with the younger crowd, and what it means is that these people learn analytics because that's an in thing. It's the buzzword. Words like data analytics, machine learning, big data, people hear these words all around and they believe that this is the trend and they have to learn it because of that. They don't realize that whether it fits into their career path, right? And as a result, the learning is always suboptimal, and so is the outcome, right? So what should you do? You should research, you should explore companies, you should look at the roles they're hiring for, you should see where the gaps are and whether the training can fill it, right? You should talk to more people. Talking is very important. Talk to your peers, talk to your colleagues, talk to your mentors, talk to your parents, talk to your friends, and understand whether analytics is for you before you take that decision to take a course to learn analytics, right? Now, if you want to learn analytics, again, there are two tracks you can follow. The first track is the business track, and the other is the technology track. Now, technology track requires some understanding of programming before you start learning. So when it comes to learning analytics in technology track, I suggest big data. And you can then pursue roles like big data architect, data engineer, big data engineer, etc. Right? While if you want to pursue the business track, then your ultimate objective would be to use data to derive results and inferences, right? You would then solve the real world problems in business through the use of data, right? If you want to follow the business track, then you'll have to have understanding of analytics, first of all, and also hands-on exposure to some of the tools like R, SAS, and Tableau. And trust me that if you're not from technology background, it won't be tough for you because these tools are very basic. The kind of programming which is required, the kind of coding which is required in these tools is very minimal, right? All right, now let's talk about which is the right way to learn. So I often get this question, given the landscape of training options which are available, what I think is the best way to learn. But unfortunately, I can't give a recommendation which can work for everyone, right? Because the learning needs are different for everyone. So depending on your learning behavior and expectations, you will have to choose the right program. When I say learning behavior, what it means is that understanding how and when you learn the best. Everyone learns in a different manner. Some people need hand-holding, some people like to learn in groups, right? You have to understand for yourself what works best for you and then pursue a program, right? And these learning outcomes which you get should always align with your career track. So you should always, first of all, understand where your career is progressing and how this learning will help you in your career, right? How this learning can fill gaps and upskill you to tackle the challenges of future, right? While talking about right way to learn, there are some no areas I want to warn you against. The first no-go area is basically the pure content-based courses, which have no or little application. So if you could so if you could learn via pure content, then these courses were not required because the content is everywhere, right? Uh, and The next thing you should avoid is superficial learning, right? If you learn something in 40 to 50 hours, you're not going to be thorough at it, right? And the whole point of learning will be lost then, because if you're looking to get a better job, or if you are looking to get a promotion in your existing job, you will have to face some questions, you will have to face some interviews, and you will not be able to clear them if the learning is superficial. So you should avoid that as well. And the final thing you should be aware of is you should look for, you should make sure that you don't fall for falsified claims. Many companies I see today, many education companies, they promise things like assured placements. Well, to be honest, no one can guarantee a job to anyone, right? All you can do is provide some career support. So make sure that you take a right decision by looking at all the claims very openly, right? And not fall for them. All right. Now coming to some of the common mistakes which you should avoid while learning online. So now suppose you have taken a call to learn analytics online. Great thing. But you should be aware of these 5 mistakes and not make them. The first mistake which I often see people making is talking about content again, is learning from content alone. Because if you could learn from content alone, the entire world would learn, because YouTube is full of videos which teach you different skills through just content, right? Now, if you basically take up your content programs, the learning outcome will be poor, right? And that's why you should totally avoid it. The second mistake which I often see, which I also call dark underbelly of online programs, is the completion dates. So I've touched upon this before in one of the slides, but I want to talk about it again. The average completion rate in industry for online programs is around 10 to 15%, which is very, very bad, right? So the odds are against you, as I said before. If you are about to take online programs, just know that you will have to have a lot of self-motivation to complete the program, because around 1 in 9 or 1 in 10 people don't complete, just 1 in 9 or 1 in 10 people complete the online program, right? So you should be very sure about your motivation, and you should be very driven if you want to complete an online program. Right. The third mistake you should avoid is you should not go for superficial learning, right? So I've seen this a lot, that people confuse learning analytics with learning tools. Tools like R, SAS, or any other tool is easiest to learn when it comes to analytics. But the problem is that these tools might get extinct very soon. Tools are important to learn, of course, but don't muddle learning analytics with learning tools. These are two different things altogether. If I give you an example, around 4.5 years back when we started Great Learning, SAS was primary tool, and now R is more popular. So we had to move our programs to R, right? So what I'm trying to get to here is that the tougher part in learning analytics is learning the science of analytics, is learning the math, learning the statistics, right? And that's what companies want from you, because tools can change, right? Tools keep changing and they command no premium. Right. The fourth mistake which you should avoid is understanding how will the industry view your program. So education pedigree matters a lot because of credibility, which comes with the name of the university, right? Having passed out from XLI Jamshedpur, I know how important the credibility of institute is, right? Everywhere you go in your life, when you show your education, they see if they don't recognize the university, that's a big issue, right? Now, apart from that, it's also important to have the kind of academic rigor which is expected by industry people, right? Because your foundations are going to be tested in interviews, and if the program which you have taken does not have the kind of rigor which is required, then you will fail those tests, right? So when it comes to academic rigor, it's very important to have a very exhaustive and intensive curriculum, right? Backed by evaluation from experts, right? So that brings me to the third point. You should know who the faculty is, because the best programs combine academic faculty and industry experts, right? It's not just sufficient or enough right now in today's world to have really good faculty, but you also have to have some industry exposure, which comes from people who are working in industry, right? From mentors who are in industry. Right. The final mistake you should avoid is you have to think about how recruiters think about hiring. So gone are the days when only pedigree was important. So that is important, and I've stressed upon that fact in one of the last points. But certificate doesn't hold alone. When you're learning online, it's very important for you to have something to show. You should always try and concentrate on how you can build a profile for yourself, right? How do you showcase what you've learned, right? And that can be done through several ways. Like one of the things we do in our programs is that we provide an e-portfolio, a body of work which can be shared with potential recruiters or anyone you want to share with, right? Which can showcase your work. All right. Having said all this, I would like to just answer some questions. And if you guys have any questions, you can keep asking in the Q&A section. All right. So someone asked, Great Learning is associated with Great Lakes. So Great Learning is an edtech company, while Great Lakes is a university, as you all know. And Great Learning has, so Great Lakes is a partner of Great Learning in providing high quality education. So most of our programs have been created in association with Great Lakes. So when it comes to curriculum or faculty, we definitely cherish and utilize the faculty, the resources which are available from Great Lakes to make the programs robust. Right. Okay, Hardik asked, could you also suggest some books that can be used by beginners for learning the science statistics of analytics? Sure, I mean, I can share something with Anuj and he can pass it on to you guys. All right, any other questions till now? Anyone else? Ravi Teja has asked, please get me links where we can get some good case studies. Sure, Ravi Teja, I'll note it down and I will pass on something to Anuj. All right. Then we have a question, how this analytics will help experienced people. All right. So to answer your question, I would like to first quote a report from Gartner. What it said is that by 2020, every knowledge worker has to be proficient in analytics. So it's not about whether you're experienced or you're fresher in the business world. It's very important to learn analytics. Everyone, it's very important for everyone, whether you're from technology background or non-technology background. You would require some amount of analytics skill to succeed in your job. And in fact, most of the layoffs which are happening in IT services industries are because people don't upskill themselves. People don't realize that the need their need of the skills has changed tremendously in the last 10 years. Right? So it's very important for everyone, even with people with experience, to learn analytics to succeed in their job and to grow. All right. Abhinav asked, how does Great Learning differ from the ones offered from foreign universities? All right. So I will not go into the comparison between foreign universities and Great Learning. We basically, if I talk about foreign universities, we also have a tie-up with Stewart School of Business, which is from one of the top universities in America, right? So Great Learning is an edtech company, as I said. We basically partner with some of the best universities across the world, including Great Lakes and Stewart School of Business, to provide quality education in blended and online formats. Right? So that's the difference. Ashish asked, can you please share books and good links related to machine learning? Sure, Ashish. We have noted this, so we'll try to get you some resources. Okay. So there's a repeat question from someone who asked before. So they're asking about certification. So, okay, so I understand you are asking whether certification will help, analytics certification will help experienced people. So definitely, see, any learning which is exhaustive will basically certify you, and the certification does hold value when you go for a job change or when you go for a promotion in your job, right? Because even if you learn something, as I said, you have to showcase what you have learned. So things like certification and a body of work or something like an e-portfolio helps you portray your learning in front of potential recruiters. Right. Brinda asked, data science domain is very vast. How to identify and focus on a particular skill? All right. So Brinda, first of all, you're very correct. Data science domain is changing very fast. So what you need to first do is understand the basics of data science. As I said, what changes very fast are the tools, right, which are used in data science. But data science as a science is very specific, right? The foundations are fixed. They won't change much, right? What will change is what you build on top of that, right? Things like tools, things like some exercises which you perform to analyze the business models you build using data science, right? So what you should do is first of all, make sure that your foundations are very strong. And that is a mistake which we see people doing all around us, right? Being GM admissions at Great Lakes, and I've seen several students make that mistake and then come for exhaustive or comprehensive learning with us. And that's why it becomes very important to learn foundations first. All right. Before I take more questions, I would like to just cover a couple of more slides, which will be the end of my presentation. Then I can take the remaining questions. All right. So having talked about all the mistakes you should avoid while learning online, I would also like to talk about how we at Great Learning developed online programs, right? So we have been getting demand for online courses for a long time now from people who can't attend a blended program at one of our centers, or even from international audiences, right? So we at Great Learning and Great Lakes have been running, actually, especially at Great Learning, we have been running India's #1 ranked blended program in analytics, which is called PGPBABI, for last 4 years, right? We have delivered over 1 million learning hours. Actually, it's more now, it's 1.5 million learning hours in analytics, right? So we brought the best of classroom programs to an online environment by introducing this blended concept, which has weekend classrooms plus online curriculum. Now, having to develop an purely online program, we basically had a discussion with a lot of industry experts, faculty, and hundreds of online learners. And what we realized, we basically tried to understand the gaps which are present in existing online programs, and we came up with BACP, right? So BACP is what we believe is the best way to learn analytics online. It's a 6 months long program. It's not pure online program. It's a mentorship driven online program. Because the biggest issue with online programs today is that the completion rates are low because there's no hand holding, right? There's no one to explain concepts. There's no one to clear doubts, right? So in order to improve completion rates and to bring in exposure to industry professionals, we came up with the mentorship driven online program model, right? So the candidates are not left by themselves. There's a group. There's a social learning element. There's a peer learning element which happens. So what we do is we basically allocate micro classes to all the students. So we basically group all the students in a batch in micro classes of 4 to 5 students, and these 4 to 5 students are then assigned a mentor, right? So the mentor takes live online instructor-led classes of these 4 to 5 students every week, and they walk them through some problems, case studies. They also solve doubts which people face while learning online, right? So that improves the completion rate. That brings in the motivation because you're not stuck at any place, right? And you have a peer group of 4 to 5 people who also drive you forward, right? This course, one of the biggest advantages of this course is that the course is certified by Great Lakes Institute of Management, right? And it was also created with the help of faculty, some of the top faculties in the world in analytics from Great Lakes Institute of Management, right? Now, as I said, it's a completely new way to learn online that makes it more effective and engaging. And if I talk about some of the reasons why BACP is the best out there, I would start with the faculty element, because as I said, some of the faculty like Professor VIdhya and Professor P.K. Viswanathan have been ranked within India's top 10 analytics faculty, right? And it's not just about faculty. As I said, the best online courses will bring together academic faculty and industry experts together. So with BACP, you get 60 plus hours of industry webinars, right, which are mostly problem walkthroughs, right, which give you insight into how analytics problems are solved in industry. The biggest advantage, as I have said before, is the personalized mentorship element, right, and micro classes. So as I have already discussed, you are assigned in a batch of 4 to 5 people and given a mentor who not just help you in doubt clearing or helping you learn better, but also help you with your career transition. These industry mentors, and we have more than hundreds of them, these are from leading companies like Microsoft, Deloitte, CTS, HSBC, etc. And if you have any questions about your resume or how to apply for a good job or how to prepare for a good job, they even help you with that. Right. The next thing which I really feel makes BACP stand out from all the analytics program out there is the body of work. As I said, it's very important to learn by doing. You cannot just like listen to all the concepts or read all the concepts and start building analytics models. You have to learn by doing. You have to work on data sets, and that's the best way of learning, right? And not just that, if you are doing so much work, if you're undertaking such high quality projects, there should be a way for you to portray them, showcase the learning, right? And that can be done by building your body of work. So when you take BACP program, any project you undertake, that gets listed with details in your e-portfolio. So that e-portfolio is always, it's automatically generated, and that's always present in your LMS. You can share it with anyone you want. The next advantage is academic rigor and depth. So as I said, learning analytics is not same as learning tools. And it's very important to have very exhaustive curriculum, right? And evaluation. So the evaluation, as I said, the curriculum has been created with the help of faculty of Great Lakes and industry experts, right? And the evaluations are also done by Great Lakes faculty. So you can imagine the quality of evaluations which is being done with BACP program. Also, whenever you're stuck, you have a dedicated program management team, so you're never left behind. It's kind of a relationship manager for your education. And the final reason why you should take BACP program is that is a brand of Great Lakes. Great Lakes, as you know, is always ranked within top 10 business schools by independent magazines and researchers. It's recognized in industry as leading analytics school with multiple programs in analytics. So it gives, that gives it the industry credibility and acceptance, which you should definitely look for, because pedigree matters a lot. Right. Having said that, I want to share some facts of BACP program. We have been running the program from last 8 months, and we have seen some tremendous, unprecedented results. The completion rates for online programs, as I said, in industry are at an average of 10 to 15%, while with BACP, we have seen completion of 90%. So 9 out of 10 people who take a BACP program get the certification, right? Complete the program. Also, most of our participants, actually 88% of our participants, rated the program 4+ on 5, which is considered excellent, right? So you can imagine the kind of quality and the perfection of delivery with which the program is executed. And we have seen several cases of career transitions. So if I talk about our analytics courses, we have seen 66% of people who have taken our courses, they have moved into analytics field. They've done a career transition into analytics, right? And we have received tremendous response from industry guests also, which shows how popular this course is in industry. So we have had contribution from 100+ industry guests as faculty and mentors for BACP program. All right, this is what some of our students have said about us, and there are many more things which they have said, which you can find in the alumni section of our website, which is www.greatlearning.in. Right. All right, so that's pretty much what I wanted to discuss. I'm open to Q&A now, and I will take up the remaining questions. And as I see, there are a lot of questions, and you might have more. So you can keep asking them here. If time permits, I will answer them, or we'll make sure that we get back to you with the answers after the webinar is complete. All right. Okay, Abhinav has asked, what's the difference in taking an online course from a reputed university versus taking a full-time course? All right, as I said, Abhinav, full-time course is definitely exhaustive because it involves you staying at a university and learning full-time, like spending a lot of time in learning with faculty, right? While if you take an online course from a reputed university, it's still the same university which is certifying your course, right? And the faculty is same and everything is same, just that if you are learning a course which is purely online, then you won't have anyone who can solve it out, right? Even if the program is from your reputed university, it might not result in high completion rate, or it might not give you the kind of motivation which is required to learn analytics, right? So in order to learn analytics, you should take an online course which basically combines the elements of offline programs, something like what BACP does with mentorship learning, right? So in terms of credibility, there's no difference, I would say, because the certification is the same. It's just that the kind of academic rigor which is provided by the program is different with online course and full-time course. All right. Sridhar has asked, what's the entry age into business analytics? Can one enter into BA above 40? Can one from manufacturing industry enter into BA? Definitely, sir. Anyone from any industry can enter into BA, first of all, because business analytics has use in every industry right now. The more the data in your industry, the more useful it is. And even if you want to make a transition into any other industry, when you have crossed 40, it is the easiest if you do it through data route, if you do it through analytics or machine learning or big data as fields, because these are emerging fields, right? We don't have enough professionals who are qualified or skilled into some of these fields. So there's no entry age to enter into business analytics, right? The more experienced you are, the easier it will be for you to make a transition. However, if you're making a transition into some other industry, you should be aware that you will not get an expert level role or a professional role in analytics. You will have to start, depending on how much exposure you have in data analytics, you will start at a certain position. Right. Pratik saying, I have 1 year of experience in data analytics and machine learning. Overall 3 years of experience. How can I prepare interviews for job change? All right, Pratik, since you already have experience in data analytics and machine learning, first of all, I would, if you are looking for a career transition, a job change, you should understand how exhaustive your understanding of these fields are, right? If you think that there are some gaps in your learning, then you should first of all upskill yourself, make sure that your foundations are strong, right? And if you're looking for a job change into analytics field, you have to have your foundations as very thorough, right? So you should prepare by first of all understanding the gaps in your learning and fulfilling them, right? So I can't pinpoint the exact gaps because I'll need to talk to you for that. But in general, you should first understand, retrospect, and realize what are your shortfalls, and then fill those with upskilling by training. The next question is, will Great Lakes provide assistance for jobs in USA after completion of course? All right, so with BACP course especially, we definitely provide career support. And the way we do it is, first of all, definitely we have a job board which is present in your LMS, and depending on your experience and the skill set, we basically keep posting jobs in your LMS, right, in your job board. Apart from that, as I said, the mentors are from industry. Mentors understand the jobs which are available in India as well as USA, right? And they can help you with preparing for those jobs. So it's not about just letting you know about the jobs, it's also about preparing you for those jobs, reviewing your resume, making you understand the kind of questions which are asked in the interviews. So all that is done by our mentors. Abhinav asked, how do I adapt to the emerging changes in data science? Every day we have newer techniques emerging up. All right. There's no doubt, Abhinav, that data science is a very fast moving field. These are emerging fields, right? Now, as I said before, the best way to tackle this challenge is to first of all build very strong foundations, because all these newer techniques and newer tools will keep coming up, and you have to keep yourself updated, definitely by being part of groups which are interested in data science, right? Be part of some Slack channels, be part of LinkedIn groups, right? Meet up, go to the events, go to meetups, attend these webinars to keep yourself updated, right? Once you have developed strong foundations, and that's how you can cope up with the fast-moving fields like data science. Okay, Abhinav also asked, there's a constant imposter syndrome surrounding in data science. Should I get to know the underlying mathematics behind each and every algorithms? Right. Now, see, definitely, as I said in a previous question as well, there's so many techniques, there's so many algorithms. What you need to understand is the basics of statistics, right? And I don't think once you have your concepts clear about statistics, you will be able to understand the underlying mathematics behind each and every algorithm if that's the need, right? So you should just focus on understanding the statistics of data properly, right? And then implementing it or applying it to the business problems at hand or data problems at hand. All right, we've already crossed the time. It's 1:11, so I think I will have to stop now. Right, Anuj? We can take some of these questions and get back to all of you later after the session sometime.
Thank you, Gaurav. Thanks for your expertise. I hope everyone is clear with their doubts. If you still have some question, you can post it on the Slack channel. You can register from the Analytics Vidhya's event page, and you'll find a join Slack channel link. And thank you for the session, Gaurav and Krishna. I hope everyone has a idea about how important a problem statement is, especially in the field of data science. So